everybody, it's Doug here. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the beginning of our epic campaign of Darkest Dungeon, the board game. Now, this is a doozy. It's a big game with lots of stuff going on, so you're going to have to keep me honest and on my toes here, but I'm very excited to get this big giant game to the table. It's based on one of my all-time favorite video game franchises. I still play both of the games, Darkest Dungeon 1 and Darkest Dungeon 2, today. And I keep playing them and going back to them because there's so much replayability, so much variability, especially in the first Darkest Dungeon, which has been modded like crazy. You can get that on Steam. You can get it on. You can even play the base without all the crazy mods, but with the DLC on your iPad or tablet, which is pretty cool. And it is a fabulously and amazing game, just so well done. And the second one has turned out to be just as cool. Now this game, Darkest Dungeon 2, the board game, is completely based on the first version of the game, the Darkest Dungeon, not Darkest Dungeon 2, which is fine because that is fabulous as well. And there's a lot of variability in this game, a lot of replayability. Now, in the game, we are coming back, and I'll go over the story with you. Well, you saw it in the intro, I imagine. We have come back to our ancestral home, and it has been destroyed and overrun by a great evil, like a Cthulhu-type evil that has taken over the land, brought to the world by our ancestors, and we're here to protect it and defeat it. And to do that, we're going to be taking heroes on a variety of quests into the dungeon that are threatening the already ruined hamlet. We have to build the hamlet back up and get it to be in a better condition, and by doing so, it's going to give us more abilities and more things that we can get. We get to level up our heroes, we get to pick new skills for them, and we get to go fight bigger and beefier monsters until we enter the Darkest Dungeon itself. And we're going to go into 3 basic chapters. Each one of those is going to have a boss that we're going to have to deal with, and within that, we are going to do a series of quests. So the structure is, I believe, I'm not reading it, but I believe the structure is 3 basic quests and the boss, and then you do that a couple of times, and then you end up at the Darkest Dungeon, and each time things get more difficult and more challenging for us. But we're going to start at the beginning, of course. Now there is a tutorial scenario called The Old Road. We are not going to be doing that. I was going to show you the pamphlet on it. Here it is. The Old Road. It is a great little tutorial mission for you. I do not need it, but if you want to, you can play that. And basically that is kind of like where the first video game starts, where you're coming in the wagon, the old road, and some madman, the guy who's driving your coach, crashes it, and you have to fight your way back to the hamlet through some brigands and that's the way it is. Now, there's still a few things to do for setup. I'm going to cover those today. I'm also going to talk about our characters and their abilities and how you select abilities and that sort of thing. I think we'll start there because the last thing we're going to do is right here in the middle. We're going to pick our boss. We're going to pick our starting quest. We're going to get our provision dice ready, and then we're going to delve into the Darkest Dungeon. I'm super excited about it. I've been waiting for this game for a long time. Now, before I get started this, I did want to talk about Mythic Games and this Kickstarter because I've had my frustrations with it. I own a lot of the Mythic Games product, all the way back from when they launched, what was it, the big God miniature skirmish game. I'm blanking out on it. But I have a lot of their games, and I like them. But this Kickstarter in particular was a rough road. And maybe it's because of the pandemic. But more importantly, it was about the communication, not the game itself. As you can see, I got the game. I got the base box and also the miniature box and the expansion, the Crimson Court. I have a lot more coming. I went heavy on this game because I enjoy the IP so much. But, and this is not paid, by the way. This is, Kickstarter. I backed this game because it was going to be, I knew it was going to be one of my favorites, even if I had to tweak some of the rules or do something to make it my favorite. It was going to be that because I enjoy the video game so much. But I was really frustrated with the communication or lack of communication sometimes from Mythic around the delivery and everything. Like I got my address verification like 2 months ago, and I waited and waited. It was a month and a half, let's say. I waited for something to say I was getting a shipping notification. I never got one. People were getting their packages and stuff, and I just asked, hey, can you give me an update? You know, I've been waiting. They don't know I'm a YouTuber. They probably don't care. I want to put it on my channel. But they never responded, and I was getting frustrated with them on their boards and saying, hey, can you just answer the question? Because it was about to go to retail. I mean, you can go buy it off their store right now. And I'm like, hey, I paid. The other thing is they came back, like a lot of Kickstarters did during the pandemic, came back and asked for extra shipping money, which I gave them. out of the, it wasn't mandatory. They said you could do it or not. I did it, and so I expected to, at least be in the first run or something like that. I clearly wasn't. But then I got no notice, and then it just showed up in a big giant box, like no notice or nothing. I'm glad I was home when they put the big, 30-pound box on my porch to be stolen without any notification. I also have a camera on my door, so it let me know that something was there. But you get the idea, and it was just a lack of communication, not the game. The game itself is beautifully produced. The miniatures are phenomenal looking. The game has a lot of depth to it. But I kind of wanted to go on a bit of a rant on that, just because I don't normally do that. But normally I try to keep things pretty positive, and this is in the end positive. I got the game, and I'm about to play it for you, and I'm going to enjoy it, and I can tell already that it's going to be a fun one for us. But I did have some frustrations with the company, and I hope that they learned from this Kickstarter and do better in the next ones that they produce, because I'm kind of reluctant to go back and go with them again. It took forever, and they had some good updates and everything, but it was a lot of communication around delivering that. It just seemed like it was off. I mean, it's not like some of the other ones where some of the smaller guys that just ripped you off and took your money and never produced the game, which has happened a couple times, but it is what it is. So let's get going. Let's talk about our characters first. Now, here is going to be our first character. I basically picked the basic crew, kind of. They have some recommendations. I tweaked it up a little bit because I wanted to have both the Plague Doctor and the Vestal in the game. But we're going to start with the Crusader. And here's his mini. And again, what do they call this paint? This quick painting now? Slap, chop, slop? I don't remember. I think it's chop slap or chop slop or whatever. I painted it just enough to get it to look good on the table, basically. It's certainly not a professional paint job, but they look decent and they look fun. Anyway, this is our character, the Crusader. Now, as you can see, he's got some great artwork. Shows his little picture there. This is a level 1 Crusader. You flip it over, you got level 2, and there's another card for increasing levels. Now this shows natural inbound or basic dodge ability, which he doesn't really have any to start with. He's got 17 health, and he can move 1 space. He is resistant to stun. That's good. That's what that symbol means. I know what most of the symbols mean, but there are some very handy condition cards that you can look at. And his Hamlet ability, we'll cover that when he gets into the Hamlet. That's after we do our first delve into the dungeon. Now what I wanted to show you is this is a deck of skill cards for him. They're leveled 1 through 3. And you get to start the game with 3, and there's more than 3. I took the 3 that I thought would be best suited for this character. So up here we have, my vest, my little sweater vest to keep me warm is hooking on the camera. I took Smite. It's a really good basic ability. And how this works is it shows you the range, that's the range, and how many targets. So this is 0 range, it means they have to be in your space. It's a 1 target attack. We're going to roll a d10. It can't crit. It's crit 0. I mean, can't crit, because there's ways to make that happen. If you do, it's a 13. But basically, without some kind of enhancement, it's not going to crit. And then it says accuracy 9, and it does 7 damage. So this is 13 damage or 7 damage if you just hit. Accuracy 9 means we're going to roll on a 9 or less on a d10. Now, there's going to be modifiers to that. And then this says this applies to the creature. So we're going to do +1 damage if the creature is unholy, because we're smiting them. So there's a lot that goes on. Oh, and this shows what position you have to be in to use this ability. Now, we are going to be in the aggressive stance with the Crusader, so he's fine. He is the frontline tank leading the way. Then I took Zealous Accusation. Now, one of the things I like about this is and this is just like the game, it's so cool. It has a range of 1. It attacks 2 creatures. Again, no inherent critical, but it just basically does 5 points to 2 creatures, and that's what it looks like right there, and it can be done in the aggressive or defensive stance. And then last but not least, I took Stunning Blow. Now, I found this to be really powerful in the video game. We'll see how it does here. But as you can see, it's 0 range, 1 target, no crit base chance. AC of 9 with 4 damage. Only 4 damage, but it stuns for 1 turn. And how do you denote that? Well, when you do something like this, like a stun, you're going to put one of these tokens, or as many tokens as the turns are, to show you what that looks like. And also there's a ton of different types of status effects and tokens. It's one of the more finicky parts or fiddly parts of the game that we'll have to keep track of, but it'll be okay. Okay, that is our Crusader. Now next up, we're going to have the Highwayman. He's going to be in our defensive position. One of the starting party recommendations for the game is to have the the Hellion in the second position, but I didn't do that. I'm going to save the Hellion in case somebody dies. The Hellion is one of my favorite characters, especially in Darkest Dungeon 2. She is a beast in Darkest Dungeon 2. She's amazing. But we're going with the Highwayman. Here's his mini, basically. You can see painted up there, not too shabby, right? But he has a, just to give you some ideas, he has a base dodge. That's his symbol right there. Level 1. He has a 1 dodge, means basically when you roll that d10, he's going to take 1 off it automatically. And then based on our light level in the dungeon, we might get some bonuses there too. He's got 12 hit points, so a lot less than the Crusader, but he's got 2 movement. He is also resistant to stun. Resistance means if you take 2 tokens, you only take 1, basically. We'll show you how that works in the game. Now, this symbol here, which I didn't explain on the Crusader, is basically your Death's Door die. So if you actually go down to 0 hit points, you don't die, but you start having to roll this die, and if you get one of the skulls, your character dies. But as long as he doesn't, if he keeps getting, and it's every time he gets hit, not every time or takes damage rather, not every time his turn comes up. So he can be down to 0 and keep running around. As long as he doesn't get hit, you won't die, unless he has some statuses like poison, which is called blight in this case. Like if you had one of these 3-point tokens, you're not going to go farther down, you're just going to roll that die, and if you live, you live. If you die, you die. By the way, this is the stress track. Stress is another factor of the game. A lot of things going on in the game. You're really going to like it, I think. It's pretty cool if you haven't seen it already. But you can become stressed out and start to get weird quirks and everything. These are humans. These are people that are trying to survive a hideous ordeal against creatures that are not normal, right? So they start to suffer stress. They start to suffer quirks, positive, negative quirks. They can get diseased. It's crazy. But I said I'm not going to go over their Hamlet ability here. I'll do it on when we get to the Hamlet. And the Hamlet is something we're going to revisit or visit back to when we complete our first quest, or decide to leave. Okay, so the first ability I took with him is Wicked Slice. It is 0 range, 1 target. It does have a crit chance of 1, does 11 damage on a crit, and it has an AC 9 with 7 damage. So you can see he hits pretty well with that. That's his first ability. The second one, I decided to get some range in there too. I mean, the Crusader has a little range with his Zealous Accusation, but that's it. So I gave him his Pistol Shot. Pistol Shot 1, you can see there, it's crit 1, 9 damage, AC 9, 5 damage. But if we can get him marked, which I didn't take the ability to mark him, I may switch out something here so I can mark them, because if he marks them first, it's +2 damage. And the mark token looks like, let me find one here for you, looks like this. So if you mark one of the enemies, it'll give you a bonus damage. And then this one, because it's cool, it does bleed. It's 0 range, 0 crit, but it can't, well, you see, I always say 0, but you can get that, like right now, if our darkness track is at 4, for example, everybody gets +1 crit, so it'd be a 1. He could do that 9. It's accuracy 10, so on a 10 side to die, if they have no dodge, he's not going to miss. And it'll do 5 damage. But it also does 2 bleeds for 2 bleed points for 2 turns, which is pretty cool. Like I said, I may decide to swap that out for something else before we start playing. I don't think I will, because I like that setup right there, do a lot of damage. Okay, let's go on to our next character, the Vestal. The third position, the ranged position on the board, is the Vestal. She's our healer. She can also be a little tanky. She can beat some things down. She's got the same health as the Highwayman. She has 0 dodge and 1 movement. She is resistant to bleed. That's what that means. And again, we'll go over Hamlet ability another time, but let's talk about her abilities. Again, she is a healer. She has this attack ability, 1 to 2 range, 1 target. It's called Judgment. It has a crit 1 for 8 and an accuracy 9 with 4 damage, but that little arrow means self, 2 health recovery. So she can heal herself by using the Judgment one. Now, I like this one because it bumps our light up, and that's important. It also does stun damage. So what that says is it's 1 target at range 1, crit 1, so it can crit for 4 damage, or accuracy 9 for 2 damage. That little arrow means we're going to get 1 turn of stun on the enemy and +1 to our light, providing we can. It won't go over 5 under normal circumstances. So it starts at 5. If we go down, she can beef it up a little bit. I think that's valuable. And then her big heal for other characters is Divine Grace. It's a 0 to 1. It can only be used in these positions. She is in the ranged position. Now, one of the problems with the game is shuffling. It can be really bad if we get shuffled around. So we got to be careful of that. I didn't take any abilities that do movement or shuffling of the characters. at this point. It's 0 to 1 range. I mean, now this funny. This game is very specific about range. If it doesn't say 0, that means you cannot attack something in your own space with that ability. If 0 to 1 on a crit of 3, it's going to do 5 health recovery to a character. It has an AC of 12, so very hard to miss, and a 3 heal there on one character. So that is the Vestal, our healer. Now they're going to level up and get more powers. But that's pretty cool. That's who she is. And last but not least, we have the Plague Doctor. Here's the Plague Doctor. It's a she, by the way. Plague Doctor is a she. Also, the Vestal's a she. I didn't know if I showed you the mini for the Vestal. There's the mini. And again, you could paint these up nicer. There's quite a bit of detail on them if you want to, but I got it table ready. And so the Plague Doctor is he's an interesting character. He does a lot with poisons or blights, rather. He has 0 dodge. He's got 11 hit points. He can move 3, so he moves quite a bit. He's resistant to blight, and that is going to be helpful for him. Now, the first ability I took for him out of his deck was Noxious Blast. It's basically 1 target, 1 space away. Crit 1 for 4, or crit 9 for 2. 2, that's not too good, but he's going to do 4 point blight damage for 2 turns. That's another 8 damage over 2 turns. Pretty good. And debuff, meaning that the crit chance is better against them. Now, how do I know that? I should show you this right here. This is the thing that shows all the conditions. You can see debuff right there. As long as the character is debuffed, others gain +1 crit to their skill targeting them. And that's why I told you there's a way to get those 0s up to 1s pretty easily. Next up, the Plague Doctor also has a Plague Grenade. This is exactly 2 range away. It'll hit 2 creatures, no crit chance. It only does 1 damage, but look at that, 3 blight for 2 turns. That is pretty good. And then last but not least, Blinding Gas. This is another stun attack, 1 to 2 range against 2 targets, and it you can see it does 1 stun for 1 turn against both those targets. So that's pretty good. Now, unless they're resistant, they're going to take the damage. Anyway, those are our starting characters that we're going to get going with as we head into the dungeon. I did tell you about our positioning in the dungeon. You can see that these tiles are here, and they will move, but you can see here that we have the Crusader in the aggressive stance, defensive, ranged, and I don't remember what that one's called, back row. so those are the positions they're going to be in, and that's going to make sure that they are able to... Hold on, I just want to make sure something here. Yeah, there's a lot more abilities. I just showed you a few of the ones from the Crusader. But anyway, those are the positions we're going to start in right there. So pretty cool, right? Okay, next up, I think the next thing we should do is prepare the monster deck. Now, I already kind of did that. So when we go into the dungeon, we're going to be, on our first foray into the dungeon, we're going to have monsters. These are them, of various levels. Okay. Now, there are some that are going to take up multiple spaces. I don't think there are any in this... he's got to go. He doesn't belong in here. There aren't any right away that are going to be taking effect, but these are all the basic... You're going to know the basic dungeon. Now, there's multiple dungeons. Like, I have the Crimson Court, and I could add those in here at first level, and then we can pick which location. Do we want to go to a Crimson Court location or Ancestral Home or the old dungeon location? So I just picked that one. We're going to do the basic one. Now, I got to shuffle these so you can see they're all out of order, but these are all the basic monsters. I thought there was one big guy in here. Let me see. There he is. He takes up 2 spaces. We got to get a special card out. He's level 1. The Brigand Bloodletter. Actually, I'm too close for this. There we go. Now you can see better as I talk through these. Lots of monsters with lots of different abilities and lots of things to take care of. But that is the monster deck. I just have to shuffle it, and basically you're going to take all the level 2s and 3s, and all the ones that aren't in the dungeon applicable to where we're adventuring, basically. So it's pretty cool, and I do want to play with the other one. I got the Weld, the Crimson Court. I think I got all the other ones, the Coast, all the ones that were available in the game. And I got to do a big shuffle on these. I'll do that off camera. Now, the next thing you see this board next to it here. This is where we're going to set up our monsters in the same way, going from aggressive, defensive, ranged, and back row. And they'll be, now on the cards it tells you which position they start in, and you go backwards from there. So when we're in the dungeon, we're going to go to 2 modes. There's going to be an exploration mode, and then there's going to be a actual big tile that we do a tactical combat on. It's one of the things I was worried about in the game, because in the Darkest Dungeon video game, it's a side-scrolling turn-based combat, and it works extremely well. I'm amazed at how well they've been able to interpret that into this game and still have it look like a dungeon crawler with a dungeon board and everything. It's pretty neat. And we also, by the way, start with a few other things. I'll show those in a minute. But let's get to what we're going to be doing. Let's find out who we're going to be fighting and what quest we're going to be going on. Now, these are the last things that we have to get set up. I got everything else set up, right? So we are ready to go with our heroes and that. But we do have to draw a quest from the level 1 quest pool. We're going to shuffle these up and draw one of those and see what we get. I don't know and don't really care which one we get. I don't think it'll be fine, but let's see. Now again, I've separated out all the 2s and 3s. It's just the level 1s. And if I had the Crimson Court, I would be able to draw from there and pick which ones I want to go into as well, which makes it really interesting. Okay, I think I've done enough here. Let's see what we get. We got Fundraiser. Okay. Wealth brings wealth. And to this estate's noble, destitute family, this was only but a saying. However, the owner was adamant that various riches could be found in the ruins. Venture through the ruins and take back what was ours. Bring wealth and glory back to our noble family. We're going to have some special rules. 1 layer room must be cleared as the minimum quest goal. Clearing layers rewards 10 gold. So we're going to get some money. After the quest is over, you can give any amount of gold to the heir, gaining 1 experience points per 20 gold given. So if we get a lot of gold out of this, we can get some experience and some decent amount of money. Of course, loot's important too, right? And then these are the dungeon tokens. You'll see what that looks like. In fact, I'll show you those now. There's a big giant stack of them. We're going to get them out, and they do different things. Like this is an empty room. This is a trap room. This is an objective room, meaning actual quest objective. We don't have those in this mission because we're looking for a layer room, which is going to be one of these red guys here. Let me see if I can find a layer room. Yeah, that is a layer room token right there. There's going to be 2 of them. We're going to have to find that room in the dungeon to succeed. So what happens to the rest of these cards? Well, they just go away for now. And we're going to put them up until we go on another level 1 quest, which we'll do 3 of. So this is going to be our quest. We'll just put this aside right now here. Well, I'll put it somewhere. We'll find it. We'll find a place for it. Now we're going to see what our imminent threat is. Now there's an imminent threat to the hamlet that we have to defeat. It's one of the reasons we're doing these first missions to try and beef up so we can take on the big bad, whoever that's going to be. And there's a lot of stuff going on there. So let's see who it's going to be. The Necromancer. All right, well, I'm going to put these cards up as well, and then we're going to go on to... I have base card trays all over the place because there's so many cards in this game. We're going to be fighting the Necromancer. Mastery over life and death was chief among my early pursuits. I began in humility, but my ambition was limitless. We could have divined the prophetic import of something as unremarkable as a twitch in the leg of a dead rat. So, again, this is going to be the boss that we go after. Now, here's a cool thing about that. There's a lot more cards to this boss. I'm going to grab them now. Let's see. Let's find the boss actions. There's that. And I think there might be a little more. Nope, that's it. Okay. Perfect. All right. And what we're going to do with this is, he's got 2 things right here. So this is the Necromancer when we have to deal with him. We don't need to deal with that right now. What we do want to deal with are these 2 sides right here. This is when we're in the dungeon. He has an effect. He's a bad guy. He has an effect on the whole world that we're in. So it says, after battles, remove any non-holy monsters permanently from the game. So basically, it whittles it down to just we're fighting undead a lot, right? When they die, they come back as zombies and skeletons and things like that. And then when we're in and that ability for him is called This is Unholy. And then when we're in the hamlet, we have this unsettling silhouette. It says the graveyard is blocked, which is not a big deal, especially in our first couple turns. But those are going to be our quests, okay, our quest information. We got the Necromancer. I read his flavor text to you, and then we have this part, which will take effect when we're in the dungeon and also in the hamlet. Okay, then the last thing that we have to do for setup before we move into the dungeon itself, which I'll get everything set up, and we'll start taking our turns in another episode because this is pretty long. We're going to roll 2 dice per character, so there's going to be 8 provision dice. Now, if we roll this DD, that means we get to choose, and basically these are things that we can use in the dungeon to help offset bad stuff. There's food, provisions and food, which I think are these. There's supplies, or I think they're called tools. Tools and potions. That's what these are. Potions. Nope, that's potions. I don't know. Well, anyway, here. There's a thing that tells you. Let me find it for you so we can go over it correctly. Here we go. All right. So the provisions are a torch. We can use it to get +1 torch or ignore the negative effects of a curio. That's what we're going to save those for. There's food, which is bandages. Yeah, food means we can deal with some hunger. But if we can also use them to gain a little health. But if we fail to eat in the dungeons at points in time, we will take damage. Tools can be used to ignore a trap or bust through rubble. We got bandages that can help heal us and also removes bleed. We have potions, basically removes blight during the dungeon, and wilds. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take all these, we're going to roll them up, and those are going to be our provisions for our adventures into the dungeon. So there we go. We got a shovel. No D's. We got lots of food though. So we're going to put those up here. We'll just keep them aside. We got a potion, a torch, two bandages, 3 food, and a tool to work with there. And that is going to be our problem. Now let's set up the dungeon. Now here are the dungeon tiles. Okay, we're going to set. This is the exploration part of the dungeon. And we're going to come back to it. It's going to go back and forth. But we don't want this one. That's the darkest dungeon. We're going to take all these and we're going to shuffle them up and pick one out of the bundle to be our dungeon. So we'll just take this one. This is where we're going to be starting. This is our dungeon setup. And as you recall, we have to set up a certain number of types of tiles. So let's get those out. We'll take a look and I'll come back right back. Okay, and here are the rooms that we needed for this particular session. We have 1 blank, 2 curio rooms, 2 layers, 2 traps, and 1 treasure room. Now we're going to take those, we're going to shuffle them all up, mix them all up here, and lay them out on the board. Now we're not going to know what they are when we go in there. But we're just going to mix them up and try and get them all mixed up, so I don't really know what they are. Already done. We'll just start placing them out at random here. And this will be our dungeon for this session. And I think there we go. Okay, now there's 2 tokens. There's a cardboard token you put here for your travel party, but I like the torch. This is the torch token. I did, again, paint it up so we had something in color to play with. And this is how we're going to start the game. Now, when we go into the dungeon, we're going to do a couple of things. One is we are going to be exploring. So that now you can do one of 2 ways. You can walk to the next room blind. You see these corridors in there. We're going to make our way through a corridor. And when we do that, we're going to roll these other dice, 2 for each character, if we don't explore. So there's going to be 8 of those, 2 for each person. And each character will roll theirs individually. It's not like a communal pool. And there's exactly 8 of them, 1 for each character. And they're going to do give us a number of hazards that we have to face before getting to the room. Now once we're in the room, we can choose to explore. Exploring makes us take 1 stress because we're really scouting it out and looking around and trying to be careful. It's making it stressful because we only have so much time. But like in this particular dungeon, that's going to be hugely beneficial to do here, because we'll get to uncover all 3 of those rooms and see what they are. It'll give us some guidance on where to go. So let's start. Let's do that, right? Now I'm thinking I'm going to change something for this part of the adventure. Because it's so important that we have these characters close by, I'm going to move this down here actually for now. And the reason I did that is because we're going to be showing what our provision rolls are and dealing with those as well. I think I am going to use a dice bowl for that so that we don't disrupt the game too much. But we'll start rolling these as we get going through the dungeon, and we'll start. So I'll start now. There's basically, we're not in combat. Everything's fine. We do start with 10 gold, and if we were in a longer mission, we would be using this camp token as well. It's really dark. It's hard to even tell what the camp token is, but that's what it is. But basically, we'll start by rolling our provisions in our first room and see what we land with. So basically, we move into the corridor. We're starting to explore that region. And then we're going to roll some dice. So for the Crusader, we get 2. This is called, again, I'm kind of new to the game, so I don't remember what everything is called. But there's, of course, handy-dandy sheets. That is called Stressful Darkness. This is the one where we need torch. He's got 2 Stressful Darkness. Our Highwayman has nothing and a trap. That is good. The Vestal has nothing and some food requirement, and the Plague Doctor has a trap and some food. So we're going to see how this plays out for us. We'll start to resolve these one by one. So we have to determine, this is where we start to determine whether or not we're going to use our provisions, right? So right now we have a 2 Stressful Darkness. Now what does that do? Stressful Darkness says consume a torch or gain plus 2 stress or minus 1 light. Well, we only have 1 torch, and I want to use that for curios too. The curios can be really bad. Now we don't have any curios here. Maybe we can collect some more later on, because I do think we're going to have to spend one of our provisions to get at least rid of one of these at least, and that'll be that. So we'll get rid of that provision die and the Stressful Darkness. Now on the second one, I think we're just going to allow the light to go down to 4 because we have the Vestal. The Vestal can get the light back up. That is the Crusader. Now for the Highwayman, we have a trap, so we can use a tool. We only have 1 tool, but if I don't use the tool, let's look at the trap. The trap card, it says consume a tool to ignore or roll an attack against you, AC 8, crit 2. It's not that much damage. I think we're just going to try and see if we can survive getting through this trap. It's just 1 trap, so 2 or 4 damage. Hopefully we don't roll a 1 or something like that. A 10, it actually missed. So that was a good lucky break for us. The Highwayman is safe. No problems there. Now we're going to go with the Vestal. Unlike using the provisions to heal, when we have hunger, we have to consume 1 food or suffer 2 damage per hero level. We're all level 1. And I think we're just going, we have so much food, it's kind of crazy. I think we're just going to consume a food, and that'll be that, and then she had nothing else on the other one. Now the Plague Doctor had a trap and food, so I think we're going to take our chances again on the trap. Remember, we have to roll, the trap is an 8. Yes, it's an 8 to hit. A 6. So it did hit the Plague Doctor, which means the Plague Doctor is going into our first room with 2 damage, which I will put on his sheet. Okay. And then he also has to deal with some food. Again, we had a lot of food, so I'll just use it and eat up so we don't starve in there. Okay. And that is the exploration phase, basically. Now we're going to hit this room and see what it is. Now we went in blind. What is it? It is a trap room. So what does a trap room do? Well, here, let me show you. Let me find the proper card for that. There's conditions. I'm looking for the trap. There we are. Rooms. Okay, we walked into a trap room here, the very first room in the game. Each hero suffers a combination of health or damage and or stress equal to the dungeon's level. This room can't be cleared. That means we have to, if we come back this way, we have to pass back through it. We won't be coming, well, we could because of the way the dungeon's laid out. It's really hard to say. But basically that means I can choose to take 1 damage or 2 stress. I think we'll take 1 damage. So everybody in the game is going to have a damage, but we have a healer, right? We have a healer. 3 damage on the Plague Doctor, though. And that's that. So everybody's going in just a little hurt because of the trap room. Now, like I said, this is a point where we can make a decision on whether or not we're going to explore. And I think that we are. Now, so what exploring means, we're going to take a stress. And you can see the Vestal here. That means this token is going to go down 1 on each person. Just 1. It's really hard to see on the board. They made these boards really dark, so you got to kind of, and they're varnished, so a little glary too. So I want to make sure I don't push it down too, because we're only down 1, and that means we're going to get to explore the next 3 rooms and see where we go. We also only roll 1 provision die the next time we go somewhere. So there's a trap room to the north. We're going to ignore that. An empty room to the right, and a curio room to the left. Let's see. Here's a curio room. It says curio room. Roll a d10. 1 to 5, the room is guarded. Commits battle. 6 to 10, the room is unguarded. After resolving the die, draw a curio and choose which hero will interact with it. The room is then cleared. So we have a choice to make. Do we go to the left? Because you know, if we have to come back, remember we have to get a layer. There's 2 layers. They could both be on one side of the dungeon at this point. They could both be here or both be here. I hope not, but that's the case. I think we're going to head toward the curio room. That would make a lot of sense. And we're going to do that in the very next episode. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoy this. This is going to be a heck of a lot of fun. And while it seems like there's a lot going on in the game, it's really not that complicated. You just got to follow the pattern, and the things that you have to do in order, and you'll be fine. Though there's a lot going on. You'll see that especially in combat. The combat is crazy, crazy fun actually. But you'll see how this goes when we start fighting. It'll change quite a bit. But curios are items, and they have a good and bad effect. Or well, they're things we can find in the dungeon. Sorry, trinkets are items. Curios are things we're going to find in the dungeon, like a cabinet or a treasure chest or something, and there's going to be stuff in there. But there's always a bad effect with it. And since we used our torch already to get rid of the darkness, we're going to have to just deal with the good and bad effects of it, because you can use a torch to only suffer the good parts of a curio card. Anyway, we'll see you in the next episode. We're just getting started. We're going to do a whole campaign of this all the way through to we die or survive, and see how it goes. We're probably going to see some character deaths. We'll see the growth of the Hamlet. We'll see the growth of some of the characters, and we'll play it out and see how it is. This is just going to be a blast. So take care, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.